Alright, Shalom, this is the brother Atazawamia from GMS South Carolina camp, part of GMS North Carolina camp, teaching Charlotte. Start out giving all praises to Yahweh Shemal Shai. Double honors to those a great millstone, taught me this truth. And Shalom to the Akim out there pushing the truth and sincerity. Now this lesson is to touch slavery, alright, and to prove, alright, with this documentation that the North American Indians, alright, are Israelites because they went into slavery on slave ships by the hands of their enemies, so-called white men. Now most people don't know this history, which is very that it hasn't really been pushed out like that. So when most people hear this, alright, they assume we making it up, or they just don't talk about it. But it's a fact that the North American Indians went into slavery on slave ships. I'm just going to touch a little bit on some of the history, and I'm going to go into the scriptures about it, alright, to show that's part of the curses that fell on Israel, proving that the North American Indians are Israelites because they fit that curse that was going to come on the children of Israel by going into slavery on ships. Okay, so I'm going to play this documentary, alright, from the 500 Nations, okay, and then play this little part. Then we're gonna go in the scriptures, and if time be it, I'll pull some from the Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Alright, so turn the camera, make sure I can see it right. Alright.
In 1670, the English founded Charleston on land belonging to the Seawee, or islanders.
Now Charleston is in Charleston, South Carolina, okay, which but prior to coming to the truth, when I was still in the world, I went to Charleston Southern, alright, which is located in Charleston, and I think downtown Charleston, more close towards the ports, they still have the slavery auction blocks, and even the areas where they used to export and import slaves. So this is key.
Charleston emerged as the economic heart of the southern colonies, built on a thriving trade in deer hides with the Seawee and neighboring nations.
In the late 1600s, with the founding of Charleston, the whole economy revolved around the Indian trade. The men who lived along Goose Creek became the big traders who would go into the interior, trading with the Indians, trading all manner of manufactured goods and beads, but primarily to get deer skins, which were being used for all kinds of purposes.
The financial success of the Charleston traders did not extend to their Indian suppliers, who typically received only 5% of what buyers in England paid for their hides. The Seawee were determined to be treated fairly. An English observer reported,
"Seeing that the ships always came in at one place, made them very confident that that way was the exact road to England. And seeing so many ships come thence, they believed it could not be far." John Lawson, Surveyor General.
the Seawee believed that by rowing to the distant point on the horizon where ships first appeared, they would be able to find their way to England. Once there, they could establish direct trade, eliminating the expensive middlemen. Preparations were secretly begun.
It was agreed upon immediately to make an addition of their fleet by building more canoes, and those to be of the best sort and biggest size, as fit for their intended discovery. Some Indians were employed about making the canoes, others to hunting, everyone to the post he was most fit for. All endeavors tending towards an able fleet and cargo for Europe. John Lawson, Surveyor General.
After months of preparation, the canoes were loaded with hides, pelts, and the most valuable possessions of the Siwi nation. All able-bodied men and women boarded the vessels and launched into the surf, leaving behind only the children, the sick, and the very old. The Siwi nation had become a flotilla. But as they entered open ocean, their fragile endeavor turned disastrous. A gale blew up. High seas engulfed the Siwi canoes. Those strong enough to survive were not the fortunate ones. They were rescued by a passing English slave ship, only to be delivered to the auction block in the West Indies.
Say what? The auctioning blocks in the West Indies. Okay? So even amongst the Caribbean Isles, you have remnants of North American Indian people of North American Indian descent that might actually look like black people on the islands, or still maybe retain their features as natives. Alright? But you gotta know that. Okay? So these so-called white men, these Englishmen, they so-called rescued this native tribe, Siwi, but then they took them to the West Indies, the Caribbean Isles, and put them on auctioning blocks. For what?
In an instant, the Siwi nation ceased to exist. Its people had become a commodity. They were not alone. Indian slaves, along with deer hides and rum, formed the basis of the southern colonial economy.
Okay, so a lot of people down here in the South, alright, they didn't just make money. Talking about the people, I'm talking about these so-called white people. They didn't just make money off of so-called Negroes and slavery. Okay, they made money first off the enslavement and shipping of North American Indians, alright, to make money. Okay, that's what people fail to understand.
In Charleston, South Carolina, the slave trade really started with the selling of Indians, and everything that we see later with the African Americans who were sold there was going on in the 1600s and 1700s with the Indians. They would be brought into market, they would be put up on a block, they would be auctioned off.
That's the curses. That's the curses. Now where's the documentation of the Zulu, alright, for this Ahaya Rahal, whatever the hell this nigga's name is? Where's the documentation proving that the Zulu went into slavery on slave ships? Okay? You fucking simple ass nigga. So our Lord gonna kill you reprobates, man.
Many Indian slaves were kept for the home economy in the South, or shipped to New England. Most were
shipped to New England. Okay, they showing you right here the places where they were shipping North American Indians. Okay?
Bahamas, Jamaica, and other Caribbean outposts.
So they were shipped to back, because when you do research, you come to find out the two major ports where they was exporting, meaning sending out Indian slaves, so-called Indian slaves, alright, which were Israelites. You talking about you so-called North American Indians. They was the main two ports where you was getting shipped out was in Charleston, South Carolina, and Boston, Massachusetts. Those were the two major ports, alright. And you was supplying the workforce for the whole 13 colonies, alright, prior to them bringing the so-called Negroes, alright, which is the tribe of Judah, to America. Okay, alright. And not only were they shipping you up the eastern coast of North America, but they also were shipping you to the islands, alright, in the West Indies, and to Europe, alright,
to work the sugar plantations. Life in servitude was brutal and short.
What? Oh no, no, no. According to these niggas, they just think only so-called Negroes suffered violently by the hands of the so-called white man in slavery. Alright? Showing you guys that come up against us, you don't study, man. You're a bunch of fucking clowns. Okay? You make these asinine statements without doing any type of research. Now, unlike you, we research who you say, and I have yet come to find any documented, any proof, factual, historic proof that the Zulu went into slavery on slave ships. Alright? But the North American Indians did, and they suffered the same type of slavery as the so-called Negroes did.
And as Indian slaves succumbed to violence, disease, and harsh working conditions, African slaves were imported to take their place.
Africans and Indians were basically being treated as animals. Even though the Catholic Church had recognized the humanity of the Indians, most of the conquerors who came over did not recognize them as human beings, and they treated them the same way they would wild horses or cows, by branding them, by chaining them, by making them march in long lines chained to one another, and then by selling them in an auction block. You could see an Indian being sold in an auction block the same way you could see cows or horses or a mule being sold.
As late as 1730, 1/4 of the slaves in some southern colonies were still Indian people.
Whoa. Well, let me push that back a little. I didn't think I heard him when he said that. Let's push it back a little bit.
1/4 of the slaves.
That's 25% of the slaves that was populating the South, working on plantations in the field, owned by the so-called white man, were
Some southern colonies were still Indian people.
They took a part of my tribe and sold them to the Spaniards in Bermuda.
Yeah, it wasn't just the English-speaking European or the English-speaking white man. It was the Spanish as well. It was the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese. Alright? They all had a part in putting us down, man. Okay? And involved in our captivity. Okay? Alright?
But I would speak, and I could wish it might be like the voice of thunder, that it might be heard afar off, even to the ends of the earth. He that will advocate slavery is worse than a beast, and he that will not set his face against its corrupt principles is a coward, and not worthy of being numbered among men. William Avis, P1.
Damn right, man. Damn right. So for all you let me pan the camera back this way, man. Alright? For you niggas. Alright? Push it back some. That's why. That's right. So for all you fucking simple ass niggas that got something to say, man, what he said is straightforward, man. You niggas, you got no heart, man. Okay? Talking shit. Alright? So let's go into this. Alright? This is from Wikipedia. Going a little bit more on this slavery among Native Americans. This is European enslavement. European colonists caused a change in the North American slavery as they created a new demand market for captured captives of raids. For decades, the colonists were short of workers, especially in the southern colonies, intentionally developed for resource expansion rather than settlement. Colonists purchased or captured Native Americans to be used as forced labor in cultivating tobacco, and by the 18th century, rice and indigo. Okay, to inquire